here today on Rooted with Mo Hemmings from the Atlanta Botanical Garden, and we are talking about container gardening in urban environments. Right now we're going to talk about herbs in containers. And of course, we all love having fresh herbs, and there's nothing better than going outside and harvesting whatever you need, your basil, your lemon thyme, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a huge difference between the flavor of this fresh tarragon and whatever you shake out of a dried container. And also you can dry them at the end of the season and then have your season of herbs extended for the ones that are deciduous.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about herbs in containers and tell us what we need to know to be successful, and then some of the herbs that you really enjoy growing and that do a good job.
Awesome. So one thing I like to always be mindful about when we're growing specifically herbs is where they come from. So we want to try to mimic that environment. Herbs like to be in a hotter environment. So yes, we want heat, but we also want good water flow. We want good airflow. And a lot of them benefit from that cut and come again. So keep producing. In order to keep that production going, you definitely want to be able to harvest them and use them as much as possible. Some of my favorite herbs include thyme, basil, rosemary. I'm a vegetarian, so I use them a lot to help punch up my flavor profiles for a lot of stuff, especially when I'm making tofu. It's a really good way to just add a more complex flavor to something like tofu. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I love to use herbs in my perennial borders as a ground cover because many of them are almost like garden bullies, like mint. Some of them you have to be careful, in fact, where you put them because they can be too happy.
Yeah.
But things like oregano and thyme, I love planting thyme, between the stepstones. They're beautiful from an ornamental standpoint. And it's a great way of integrating them into, a broader, say, perennial border.
Yeah, and they're, again, great because they're so used to being cut back. They're really good as like an alternative to lawns. They have beautiful flowers too. Pretty white flowers, they are attractant to a lot of our pollinators, your bees and your butterflies. So that's a really helpful thing for them. And you can even do a mixed kind of border. Like for example, there's chocolate mint.
Right, I love chocolate mint.
Pineapple mint. So you can do a mix, orange mint, just like have a whole variety of different cultivars of mint that have a similar but different flavor profile or scent profile. So that's pretty cool about them too. And oregano is another one of those that you can have different cultivars that offer you different things.
And sometimes they can be strikingly different. When you go to your garden center and you see silver thyme, lemon thyme, pinch a little leaf off and try it. I mean, lemon thyme is very pungently lemony, and so sometimes you can get a whole different flavor profile. I mean, like Thai basil, completely different than Genovese.
Which is completely different from purple basil.
Absolutely.
Of course. So, and what's really cool I like about basil specifically, not only are you getting those different flavor profiles, but the flowers are edible too.
Right.
So that's a really cool aspect about it. If you're not into, say, the seed saving, you can use the whole entire plant.
Right.
I mean, you want to kind of avoid the stem because of the woodiness, but using the leaves, using the flowers, and again, by continuously harvesting on it, you can keep growing. Basil here is a tender perennial. So what that means is that if you bring it inside, you can keep growing basil year round. You don't have to grow it just in the summertime when we are really thinking about it. You can have caprese all year long.
Some herbs, when they flower, the herb itself, from a culinary standpoint, will start to get a little bitter. What are some of the ones that are particularly affected by that we need to think about removing the flowers or not letting them bolt?
We talked about eating the basil flowers. With purple basil, you don't really have that much of an issue. However, with your sweet basil, your green basil, sometimes called Italian basil, that's when you'll start to get more of that pungent, bitter taste, which is why you want to kind of get in there and pinch that back before it really gets a heavy flower on it, just to, again, keep that like culinary flavor profile.
When you see that little flower head emerging on many herbs, it's not a bad idea to go ahead and clip it. And also when it goes to flower, the plant's going to put all of its energy into producing flowers and seeds, and so even the leaf growth, which is what typically we're eating, will be diminished, and oftentimes the flavor won't be as good.
Well, with the cilantro, depending on what you want the end game to be, you can
right.
hold on to it
Get your
because
coriander.
get your coriander seeds.
That's right.
So depending on what you want to use that for, you can make that choice that, okay, I'm not going to use it as fresh cilantro anymore, but I can collect these seeds for my coriander. So.
I love the dried seed heads of cilantro, you know, in late season anyways. They have a really wonderful ornamental value, and fresh cilantro, it's great.
Another one of those that I really enjoy is dill flowers.
Right.
Dill flowers are just like a nice bright flavor that I love to add to salads, especially conversed with something a little bit sweet like a balsamic vinaigrette with that dill flower in my mixed green salad. Chef's kiss.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Something that a chef buddy of mine introduced me to, and I'd never seen it as a culinary item, fennel pollen.
I wonder though, because you know, we use the pollen, it's the pollen of crocus flowers, right?
Right, saffron.
Saffron.
Yeah.
I wonder what the harvesting of fennel pollen would be.
It's not cheap, I'll tell you that.
I can
It's not cheap.
I can
Kinda
only
like saffron,
imagine.
yeah.
Really the work that goes into it. I'd be interested to try that.
Well, awesome. We've learned so much about herbs, and the one thing I think people need to know is that these are made for containers. They do great planted in ground, but also herbs, like you said, they need all that drainage. You can love them to death so fast, and oftentimes if you plant them in this heavy clay soil that we have here in Atlanta, they don't have enough drainage. And so if they get wet feet and they stay wet,
Then that's rot heaven.
you're gonna lose them.
And there they go. Yeah.
Right, and containers, you almost never have those kind of problems. They just intrinsically have good drainage if you use a good mix, and so you can have success with herbs.
And
all
also
year
with
round.
the containers, you can move it to the sun. So you're able to, again, address that high heat, good drainage pattern with them. So.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Mo.
No problem.